What's good, artists? It's Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com here with another Artist Marketing 911. Today we're going to be discussing what I think is probably one of the most important questions any independent rapper can ask themselves. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity to speak with my boy Ruslan on a hip-hop panel in Oceanside, where we talked to a lot of aspiring rappers, aspiring singers, and even some aspiring producers. I got asked a lot of great questions, and they were picking at my brain about marketing tactics and strategies, but one question in particular that stood out was from another rapper who was really just starting to get started within his career, and he had questions of whether or not he should learn a new craft or should he invest in a new craft. Now, the craft he's talking about is like graphic design. Should he learn how to do Photoshop? Should he learn how to mix and master? And should he learn how to video edit? Now, me in particular, when I first got started, I couldn't afford to pay for these different services. So by default, I had to teach myself. If I wanted to have a career as a rapper, I had to teach myself. I jumped on YouTube, and YouTube is not what it was as it is today. YouTube was a much different world back then, but I still went on there and checked for whatever tutorials they had on Photoshop. I checked for whatever tutorials they had on Windows Movie Maker, which I was making music videos on. I don't know how, but I tried and I did it. I was learning how to mix and master from any random guy on there that sounded like he knew what he was talking about, and I was on my way. I had to figure this whole thing out. Now, I'll say this. I put an amazing amount of pressure on myself to learn these things because I wanted to be successful. And even to this day, anything new that I get into, I want to learn it. I want to learn it as if this is the only thing I'm going to focus on. I don't learn it as if I'm a rapper who happens to do video editing. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as if I'm competing with the Spielbergs. I'm competing with the greatest in this particular realm. I want to compete with them, and I want to know their tactics. So that's what I did. I watched my favorite Spike Lee movies in order to know what are great music video techniques or great camera angles and great color correction. And one major benefit I'll say is that when I took the initiative to learn these different fields, it increased my vocabulary about these particular crafts. Now, I'm not saying that I was the most professional graphic designer. I can show you some album covers I made on MS Paint that will embarrass even the most strongest of us. But I learned the craft. I learned what different things meant. I learned what an overlay meant. I learned that Photoshop came in layers. I learned that if you put these particular colors together, they give this kind of emotional effect. I learned in video editing the power of color correction. I learned in mixing and mastering how you should use a de-esser on certain vocals. I learned about the importance of reverb. All of these things were important because as I put myself in a position to eventually delegate these responsibilities to the professionals, to people who only mix and master, to people who only do video editing, to people who only do graphic design, I was able to speak their language. It wasn't frustrating to work with me because I wasn't one of those rappers who were like, hey man, just make my cover look like I'm in space, but I'm floating on top of my back and I'm eating oranges and grapes are just flying out of the hemisphere. I wasn't one of those guys because I knew what I was talking about. I could tell a video director, look, I love what you did, but I think that the color correction could be a little bit more warm. So I encourage you to learn as much as you can. A lot of us won't even take a chance on seeing if we're going to be actually good at that. I mean, look at a guy like Tyler, the Creator. If you didn't know, he does a lot of his own music video editing, a lot of his own music video direction, and a lot of these ideas are from this man's brain. And who better to represent the visual aspect of the music than the person that wrote it and was inspired by his own visuals? So you look at that situation and you realize sometimes we got to take a chance on another craft, even though music is our number one passion. It's not a problem to have multiple passions. It's a problem when you get unfocused on what the passion is that you're greatest at, but I don't think there's a problem with opening your mind up to the possibilities that you might be a great graphic designer, but you won't know until you take a chance. I look at Tyler, the Creator's videos, and I'm like, he could have easily been one of the most sought out video directors because he put that pressure on him to be efficient. And I think that when you take chances on yourself, you might find that a lot of the things you got to wait for somebody else. You got to wait for this person to get in the right creative space. And all these things you got to wait for when you're in a creative field, you won't have to wait for anymore because it's all on you. And when you're creating something that is supposed to be a great representation of your music and your work, and it's an extension of what you're doing, you don't need motivation for that. You'll want to do the best job possible. Now, as of today, I delegate a lot of the things that I used to do on my own, but there always comes a situation where all of my graphic designers or all of my engineers are not able to be right there on a moment's notice. So guess what? I got to take all of this knowledge that I have learned from them, from my own research, and I got to put it into action. So to answer his question and to answer any of your questions, if you're just getting started, even if you're not just getting started, if you just want to expand your brand, learn another craft. Jump in a community college. Jump on YouTube or just jump on a Google search and just find a course where somebody is covering these things. There are people out there who are willing to help if you're willing to invest into yourself. Find these courses, find these tutorials, which is so many more tutorials out now. I still to this day look at tutorials for Sony Vegas where I do most of my video editing. But expand your mind, expand your possibilities. And if you don't do it for any other reason, just do it to learn the vocabulary of the fields that you're going to be coming in contact with. Now, these are my thoughts, but I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please share, like, subscribe. Once again, this has been another Artist Marketing 911, Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com.